Imagine being thrown into a dark pit, surrounded by hungry lions. What would you do if your faith was the only thing standing between you and death? This is the story of Daniel, and what happened that night will change the way you face the challenges of your life. There was a man named Daniel, known for his wisdom, humility, and unshakable faith in the God of Israel. He had been taken captive to Babylon as a young man when King Nebuchadnezzar conquered Jerusalem. Yet, even as a slave in a foreign land, Daniel never lost his identity. He was a servant of the living God, and he always would be. Years passed. Daniel was no longer a young man but a respected and admired leader, now serving under King Darius the Mede. Daniel had earned the king's trust because of his honesty and leadership abilities. Impressed by Daniel, Darius appointed him as one of the 3 chief governors of the empire, tasked with overseeing the satraps and administrators. However, one decision made by the king ignited jealousy and hatred among the kingdom's other leaders. The other governors and satraps, full of envy, began to plot against Daniel. They searched for a flaw to accuse him before the king but found nothing. Daniel was blameless in everything he did. He was incorruptible, truthful, and governed with justice. This only frustrated his enemies further. One day, meeting in secret, they reached the following conclusion. We will never find anything against this Daniel unless it has to do with the law of his God. And so the trap was set. The envious leaders approached King Darius with a tempting proposal. "O king, live forever. We, your governors and satraps, suggest that you sign a royal decree. For the next 30 days, no one may pray to any god or man except you, O king. Whoever disobeys will be thrown into the lion's den." Flattered by such devotion, Darius failed to perceive the true intent behind their words. He signed the decree, making it irreversible according to the laws of the Medes and Persians. When Daniel heard about the decree, he knew exactly what was at stake. He was not naive. He understood the risks of continuing to pray to his God. But Daniel did not hesitate. His communion with the Almighty God was unshakable, and he would not allow the voice of men to silence his faith. At the end of that day, as he always did, Daniel went up to his room, opened the window facing Jerusalem, and knelt to pray. There, in the silence of his heart, he prayed and gave thanks to the Lord. He did not hide. He did not change his habits. 3 times a day, Daniel continued to seek the presence of God. Meanwhile, Daniel's enemies were spying on him, hidden in the shadows. And there he was, kneeling, speaking to his God. The moment they had been waiting for had finally come. They rushed to King Darius, eager to bring down the faithful governor. "O king, did you not sign a decree stating that no one may pray to any god or man except you? Well, Daniel, that Jew whom you appointed over the whole kingdom, has disobeyed. He continues to pray 3 times a day to his God." The word struck King Darius like a heavy stone. He was distressed, for he realized he had been deceived. Daniel, the man he trusted, was now facing death because of his own decision. The king spent the rest of the day trying to find a way to save Daniel, but the law was clear. A decree signed by the king could not be revoked. By evening, the conspirators returned, impatient. "O king, the law of the Medes and Persians cannot be annulled. Daniel must be punished." With no alternative, King Darius gave the order. Daniel was taken by the palace guards, under the curious and dark gazes of the enemies who longed for his downfall. The king's heart was heavy, his hands were tied. As Daniel was escorted, the palace corridors were silent. Those who saw the man walking at that moment noticed something surprising on his face. Peace. Daniel did not tremble, complain, or resist. He knew who his God was. At the entrance of the lion's den, the king looked at Daniel and, with a trembling voice, said, May the God you serve continually rescue you." The guards then pushed Daniel into the den, and a large stone was rolled over the entrance. At that moment, darkness filled the chamber, and the roar of lions echoed, a chilling warning of death. King Darius returned to the palace but could neither eat nor sleep. He spent the entire night in anguish, thinking about faithful Daniel and what might have happened in that dark den. Sometimes life places us in situations where we must choose between pleasing God or giving in to the pressure of those around us. Daniel teaches us that true faith does not hide, even in the face of danger. When we trust in God, we do not need to fear the consequences, for He is with us, even in the lions' dens we face. But that dark night, something supernatural was happening inside the den. Daniel was not alone, and at dawn, an inexplicable miracle would be revealed. The sky had begun to darken when the great stone was rolled over the entrance of the den. The sound echoed through the place like a final seal on Daniel's fate. Inside, the silence was frightening, broken only by the growls of the lions as they moved in the shadows. The smell of damp earth mixed with the overwhelming presence of the great felines, hungry and fierce. For any other man, that scene would have been an unmistakable sign of certain death. But Daniel was at peace. His confidence was not in his own strength, but in the God he had served since his youth. As the lions prowled around the den, Daniel closed his eyes and prayed. It wasn't a desperate prayer, like someone begging for his life. It was a conversation with his God, the one he knew so well. Perhaps he said, "Lord, I trust in you. I know you are powerful enough to deliver me. But even if you do not, my faith in you remains." Meanwhile, in the palace, King Darius endured the longest night of his life. His conscience tormented him. He, the most powerful man in the kingdom, had been manipulated by envious governors. The image of Daniel being led to the lion's den would not leave his mind. Darius touched neither food nor drink, and he would not even allow the musicians to calm him. He spent the entire night restless, wondering if Daniel's God would truly be strong enough to do the impossible. In the den, a silent miracle was taking place. The same God who had parted the sea for Moses was now shutting the mouths of lions. The beasts, which moments earlier seemed ready to attack, lay down quietly, as though an invisible presence had filled the room. A soft light, not of this world, illuminated Daniel's face. He was not alone. An angel of the Lord had descended to protect him. The lions approached, their heavy paws stirring up dust from the ground, but they did nothing. One of them, the largest and most ferocious, approached Daniel and looked directly into his eyes. Then, calmly, it sat beside him like a silent guard. Perhaps at that moment Daniel smiled. He knew God had answered his prayer. Time passed slowly. The den, which should have been the place of his death, became a living testimony to God's power and care. As the night wore on, Daniel remained there, at peace, like someone resting under the shelter of the Almighty's wings. When the first rays of sunlight began to appear, King Darius could no longer wait. Without even changing his clothes, he ran to the lion's den. His heart pounded in his chest. Could Daniel still be alive? Or had fate been too cruel? Upon arriving, Darius shouted with a trembling voice, one that mixed hope and fear, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has the God whom you serve continually been able to deliver you from the lions?" For a moment, the silence felt like an eternity. The king held his breath, waiting for an answer. Then, from deep within the den, a strong voice echoed, bringing indescribable relief. "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not harmed me, because I was found innocent before him, and also before you, O king, I have committed no crime." Daniel's words filled the air like a miracle in the form of sound. King Darius put his hands to his face. overcome with a mixture of surprise and joy. Daniel was alive. Against all odds, God had shown that his power knows no limits. Life often presents us with our own lion's dens. Dark, dangerous moments where everything seems lost. In those times, it's easy to give in to fear and forget that God is in control. But Daniel teaches us that even in the darkest and most terrifying places, God is there. When you pray and trust in him, he cares for you and accomplishes the impossible, even when circumstances say otherwise. But what would happen to those who plotted against Daniel? King Darius still had something to resolve. Daniel's words still echoed in the air, like a miracle proclaimed to the ears of everyone present. King Darius, a mix of relief and astonishment on his face, could not contain his joy. Without wasting time, he ordered the guards to remove the great stone from the entrance of the den. The morning light slowly pierced through the darkness, illuminating the most unbelievable sight they had ever seen. Daniel, standing unharmed, surrounded by calm lions, as though they were nothing more than sleeping kittens. The same beasts that had moments before seemed ferocious and untamable now displayed a supernatural calm. One of them, the largest and most imposing, was seated beside Daniel like a loyal protector, watching the movement with a peaceful gaze. The guards, who were used to witnessing brutal scenes, could not believe their eyes. With trembling hands, they helped Daniel climb out of the den. As they pulled him up, King Darius reached out his hand, as though he wanted not only to touch him but to confirm that Daniel was truly alive. His eyes were filled with tears. "Daniel, the God whom you serve truly is powerful. There is no one like him." Around them, the conspirators watched everything with expressions of shock and terror. What they were certain would be Daniel's end had now become undeniable proof that his God was real and sovereign. The silence was broken only by the thunderous voice of Darius echoing through the courtyard. "Bring me the men who accused Daniel." The false smiles of those who had plotted against Daniel vanished instantly. They glanced at each other, searching for a way out, but there was nowhere to run. The king was determined to bring justice. As they were brought before the king, their faces turned pale. They knew that the fate they had planned for Daniel would now become their own. King Darius, with a voice firm and authoritative, declared, "You conspired against an innocent man using lies and deceit. Now you will suffer the consequences of the evil you have planned." Darius ordered that the men, along with their families, be thrown into the same lion's den. This time there was no miracle. Before they even touched the ground, the lions pounced upon them, roaring ferociously. The silence that followed their cries was deafening. That moment left a profound impact on everyone who witnessed it. It was not merely an act of human justice, but a demonstration that the God of Daniel not only delivers his servants but also defends the honor of those who trust in him. Those who had tried to use evil against the righteous now saw evil turn against them. By the end of that day, the entire kingdom was talking about Daniel and his God. From the poorest to the most powerful, everyone knew that the God of Israel had done something extraordinary. Servants ran through the palace corridors, sharing the story with one another. "Did you hear? The lions didn't touch Daniel. It was as if an angel was there with him." King Darius, deeply moved by what he had witnessed, summoned his scribes and ordered that they write a new decree so that the entire empire would know what had happened. As the scribes' pens scratched across their scrolls, the king's words resounded as a public testimony. "I, King Darius, decree that all peoples, nations, and languages must fear and honor the God of Daniel. For he is the living God who endures forever. His kingdom will never be destroyed, and his dominion will never end. He rescues and delivers. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He is the one who rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." As the new decree was sent to the provinces, the fame of the God of Daniel spread throughout the empire. Daniel, for his part, sought no glory or reward. He returned to his routine, continuing to serve the king with the same humility and wisdom as always, never neglecting his prayers and devotion to God. At times, life can feel like a vast lion's den, filled with challenges and situations that threaten to devour us completely. But this story reminds us that we do not need to be afraid. God sees everything, knows everything, and fights for those who trust in him. When people conspire against you, when injustice seems to prevail, remember, the same God who shut the mouths of Daniel's lions is the God who can deliver you and bring justice in his perfect timing. The den had been only the beginning. Daniel's deliverance was a miracle that no one could deny, but the true strength behind that man remained a mystery. There was something about his faith, something powerful and unshakable, that could turn even the darkest moments into testimonies of glory. But what happened to Daniel after all of this? His story was far from over. With King Darius's decree spread throughout the empire, something extraordinary began to happen. The name of Daniel's God, once known only among the people of Israel, now echoed across the four corners of the kingdom. Entire nations, who for generations had worshipped silent idols, began to hear about the God who saves, delivers, and works miracles. Daniel, for his part, sought neither honor nor glory. After walking out of the lion's den unharmed, he returned to his usual place, kneeling in his room with the window open toward Jerusalem, praying and giving thanks. His heart was not set on his position as governor or on the respect the kingdom now had for him. His heart was set on God, the same God who had been with him since the days of his youth. King Darius watched it all. He had met many powerful men, but never someone like Daniel. He realized that true strength did not lie in armies, wealth, or the size of an empire, but in a simple, unshakable, and constant faith. A faith that had transformed not just one man's life, but an entire empire. In the days and years that followed, Daniel prospered as governor. He continued to serve with wisdom, humility, and faithfulness, maintaining his daily devotion to the living God. Wherever he went, his story was told as an example of courage and trust. In the streets, in homes, and even in the most distant royal courts, people said, "If Daniel was saved, maybe this God can also hear our prayers." That was the greatest testimony. Not the miracle itself, but the unshakable faith that sustained Daniel. The story of that man spanned generations, inspiring lives throughout the centuries. The lion's den, which should have been the end, became the beginning of something far greater. And so, the God who shut the mouths of the lions that night has continued to show, through the ages, that he is the God who cares for, saves, and protects those who trust in him. How many times do we face our own lion's dens? Perhaps they are financial struggles, family problems, illnesses, or injustices that seem to devour our hope. But Daniel's story teaches us that when we kneel before God, there is no challenge, lion, or circumstance that can defeat us. Victory does not come from our own strength, but from the God who is with us in every moment. If this story touched your heart, share this video with someone who is facing difficulties. Maybe this message of faith and hope is the light that person needs. Leave a comment below. What part of the story impacted you the most? Have you ever experienced a deliverance from God in your life? Share your testimony with us. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and stay tuned for more incredible stories from the Bible that will transform your faith and inspire your life. May God bless you all, and see you in the next video here on The Wisdom of the Word.